guys, there was some technical issue and some technical errors. So, welcome back once again to another episode with me, Bhavi Desai. And this is our expert talk series that we've actually been doing since quite some time. And as I mentioned earlier, that today we're going to talk about something which is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very different. Also, something which is not really spoken about a lot. So, let me just first bring Vikram on, and then we will talk about this further. Okay.
Great. So, guys, as you know, this is firstly welcome to the another episode of Expert Talk with me, Bhavi Desai, of course. And you know that over the series that we've actually been talking to some really brilliant photographers, great artists, in order to give you guys an idea and a look about what is it that they do. We have been speaking about specific topics, and today. I'm really happy that I'm speaking to a very good friend of mine, a very old friend of mine as well, and of course, one of the top commercial and fashion photographers in our country. That's Vikram. So, Vikram, thank you so much for, of course, doing this and coming on. So, am I audible, Vikram? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm good.
Okay,
Thanks for
perfect.
having me
All right.
over here, guys.
Great. Okay, so today, guys, we're actually going to not just focus on commercial and all of these things because I'm sure that you've heard Vikram speak about these things a lot. But today, the focus is going to be on something which is going to be fine art and fine art nudes. And now, this is something which a lot of people don't really speak about, and that's why I really would like to commend Vikram to actually take this opportunity as well when we spoke that this is untreaded and uncharted topic. So this is wonderful. Great, Vikram. So firstly, I hope everything is safe and everything is sound. No issues in
Everything's
during
good,
this.
God. I hope everything's good with all you guys. Yeah, all our
Absolutely
viewers
fine.
also. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So the first one that I actually want to, before I start with some of my questions, and guys, you guys know the drill that please, if you have any questions, then please just fire away and we'll try and get to as many as possible. But the first one I actually wanted to ask you, Vikram, was that I wanted to take you back to the Exhibit A times, you know. So
Okay.
right. So I remember at that point of time, there was one of your pictures and couple of them, at least two or three of them that you had featured had become super controversial. There was like a major controversy around it.
Yeah.
So did the whole thing in your head like kind of tweak from there to kind of explore this whole fine art nude sort of a genre? Or
No, so the thing is, I had already been doing this before also. So like a lot of creative people, I have dabbled in fine art and nudes, even before I went professional. So the controversy you're talking about, I think, happened around 2007, maybe, or
right,
earlier. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
right,
But I'd already had 3 or 4 exhibitions, joint and solo, of my nudes, starting from somewhere around 99, 2000.
right,
Okay, but at that point, I guess media was not so big, it was very niche. So only the people in the art world knew about it. And as luck would have it, the Exhibit A controversy just blew up, and I was splashed everywhere. My work was splashed everywhere. So I think people remember that as like a defining moment in my nudes journey. But I was already shooting before that for almost 7, 8 years.
right, right. So where does that drive and that objectivity kind of come from? I mean, it's because, of course, naturally, in terms of genre, you've been doing commercial and fashion and editorial and all of these things, of course. But is this something that you kind of pursue more personally and kind of on the side? Is that how the exploration comes?
Yeah, so the thing is that, see, before I became a professional, I was practicing, or rather, a practicing hobbyist for almost, I would say, 7, 8 years. So I jumped into photography much later than most people. I was running a company, and photography was a habit, was a hobby. I used to travel, I used to shoot a lot on those travels. And slowly, I, started meeting people. I started shooting, male models, female models. And I think it's in my, you know, spirit, if you want to call it, where I need to explore. I need to explore practically every genre, everything that I see, every technique, every piece. So let me start. Like I started as a landscape guy. Fine. So when I started shooting nudes per se, my start was a landscape style of shooting nudes. But as I started exploring, uh, not nudes, only myself as a person, I realized that uh, you can call me a disruptor, you can call me, conversationalist, or you can call me, eternally anxious to find something new, explore. Like for example, off topic. I did 3D, right? Photography. Now that I did that in
Right,
'98.
right,
98 when I did that. I had magazine covers in 2000. I had done so. I think it's just in me to keep exploring and experimenting. And with
right,
nudes, what happened is that I started having conversations. Like the exhibit A was a conversation on love. There was nothing to do with nudity. It was about
right,
love. I didn't even know there was a law against homosexuality in those days or against, all those things. So when I created that series, for me, it was pure love, a boy and a girl. It started with that, you know, and I knew people who were in love, a couple, a heterosexual couple, a gay couple, a lesbian couple, and it ended up, you can say, like a journey from there to explore more. Like, it just kicked me. I want to have more conversations with people. I want to, explore identities, minds. When you confront them with something which is actually out there, why do we shy away from it? So I think that's
right.
really the gist behind most of my work.
Right, right. So, in fact, I was actually going to ask this question a little later, but one of our viewers has already asked this, which is basically Basil the Bullet. Fancy name, though.
I know, I
Uh,
can see him popping up. Yeah.
right. So, he's actually asked you a very interesting one, wherein he says that did you experiment with your skill with friends who were posing or something like that at that point of time? Because, of course, it's as you know that, and this is something that I want to tackle a lot later as well with a lot of
Yeah.
questions because I have this. These are really important questions. But how did that happen?
Well, you can say they can be friends before I started shooting them, or they could be friends along the way. My way of working has been very forthright. I've come up straight to a person. I've always asked them for, upfront that I think, I would like to explore this type of series with you. Would it make sense or would it excite you? Of course, uh, I have also learned now, after many years, that you can feel the pulse of people when you talk to them, and you can feel the pulse of a person who's ready to experiment or give to the camera, rather. So the
Right.
person who's ready to give the camera could be anybody, could be a friend, could be someone you just up to. I've actually walked up to someone, I mean, not walked up, actually met someone in a lift and asked her
Wow.
offhand, okay, would you be interested in doing something? And I ended up shooting. So, I think the biggest thing is respect, trust, and truth in the fact that you want to shoot because it's art, not because it's nudes. There is a big
Right.
difference, which a lot of people, photographers, male, female photographers get confused in that the person is nude in front of you as a Coca-Cola bottle. Please remember that. You have to make the Coca-Cola bottle look good or light the way you want or come up with something very interesting with that person. They're not there to be nude in front of you and to be, looked at in any other way. Then you're not going to get your
Right.
pictures because you're not concentrating on your work. That's been my way of working. And I've, worked with, like Basil is asking friends. It's always easier if it's friends. But I've also realized it gets tougher with friends after a while because being friends, they may let you experiment, but being friends, then you can't explore a lot more that you want to. But
Right.
it all depends on your rapport. I mean, I've
Right.
had
Right.
some really close friends. I've gone all out, and I've had close friends with whom they've said, "Please burn the pictures." So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
But how do you define that line? I mean, as I'm sure that as a photographer, as you said, that you need to make it look aesthetic and beautiful. So how do you define that line of not making the subject look um, I mean, vulgar or whatever. It's a sensitive world out there, and make them
You,
look artistically interesting. Where is that line?
for me, it's, I don't know, from day one, the line's been there. I've never thought of it of any other way because I've always wanted to create an image which people look at and say, wow, or they say, why did you shoot it? Like I said, I'm a conversation. So if I'm shooting an image, I want you to talk about the image. I want to love my work. I don't want you to love me. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's a separate part of me. But with my camera in my hand, I am very anal about my end result. I
Right.
don't want. See, I come from a film time, right? You remember film was so expensive to shoot. So if you're shooting 650 rupees per roll in those days, plus processing, you had 36 frames and you had to wait for the photos to come. So you couldn't be
Right.
wasting time and energy. So I think it just the respect for my work is uh, greater than anything else because for me the end result is would you want to see that picture up on your wall or would you want to be part of that picture or can I show it to the world? See, for me, whether I shoot commercial, whether I shoot personal, I want people to look at my work. Maybe it's a greedy way of looking at it, but I want them to look at my 5 pictures. I show them and say, "Wow, why didn't we think about it? Why didn't we shoot it?" So that fine line comes from the fact that you want to see your vision on paper, you know, and that's what people should be talking about.
Right. But so it's you. So do most of the photographers then essentially only explore these sort of genres as a hobby? Because I know that, of course, because we know each other so many years, and I know that there's
Yeah.
something which is really personal for you, and you've been working on a lot of series. There are some that you're working on now as well. Is it not a natural extension from where a commercial or a fashion photographer comes, or do they just pursue it more of as a hobby and things like that?
I think it is a natural extension, and to take it forward, I think it is an essential, extension because it makes you explore to, something that's not easy for everybody involved in that,
Right,
our image, the work, the concept, whatever you may call it. It's a whole process starting from making the, subject to your team, if there is a team, be comfortable, and
right,
then get that image out the way you want it. So I think it's very important to grow, but I also feel maybe given the nature of who we are, I wouldn't say culture because our culture has been very open. I would say times, the way we look at these type of things, the way we ourselves have, brought the level of photography from an art form down to a technical level, has made a lot of people shirk away from showing their work, even if they're doing it as a hobby or as an art form for themselves. They're
right,
scared to show their actual potential because they feel they will not be. I'll give you an example. So I work with one of the world's biggest hair coloring brands in the world. I spent 3 months, reshaping the way they do photography in the country. My shoot's on Monday. On Thursday, someone puts an article on me that, on me and my nudes. The brand actually called me up within the hour. Okay, this is not a nude shoot. I said, yeah, I know it's a hair shoot. I mean, whatever question is that? Like, we had a small conversation where I did explain to them, dude, I'm a professional. That's part of my artwork. I did the campaign with them, turned out very well. That brand has taken my sensibility and my structuring of working ahead, but they've never worked with me after that.
wow,
That's the unfortunate, way we Indians look at this type of art form. If I was in London, not America, but if I was in London, Italy, anywhere in Europe, they would have looked at me and said, wow, I mean, I've got 2 international awards for my news in Paris. Okay, I'm the first Indian to ever get awards for my news abroad. And over here, that same image, one of the most respected art galleries was scared to put it up. And that was what? 18 by 24 size, not even like one of my large scale images. And they wanted to put up in their basement section of their gallery. And I refused. I walked out of that. So, we still have that little fear, you want to call it. What will
right,
people say? What will people think? How will we? And the image I'm talking about was a male nude, not even a female. So,
right.
So,
Right.
I mean, I think a lot of photographers do explore this. They don't take it forward because they're just scared of putting it out there. And
So
I
in
say,
fact,
sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
sorry. No, no, please, please,
No, no,
please
no,
continue.
better you go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, please.
No, I say the more of us put it out there, or the more of us get together and start talking about it, and the more of us start sharing our works like this, our own creative sensibilities come up, the appreciation will come up. You'll find the right people who will appreciate this.
Right. So, in fact, one of the things that you kind of pointed out in this is about how fine art and nudes are kind of perceived internationally as compared to where we are. So, I would like to
Yeah.
address that in the next question. But prior to this, do you think that it was a little bit easier to possibly still exhibit nudes or fine art nudes earlier as compared to now? Because now, of course, with the explosion of social media, with the way things have changed, again, a lot of people, models, subjects, XYZ have also kind of sometimes they kind of tend to take a step back saying that, okay, look, I might do this and then probably it might backfire on me, even if it's really great. Do you think we've moved forward as a society in terms of thought process, but in terms of displaying and viewing things, we've probably gone back a decade?
Yes, yes, yes. More than a decade. When I started out, there was no issues putting up nudes, and I'm talking about the 90s, right?
Right.
There was no problem shooting nudes creatively, putting them out there, showcasing them. I had 3 exhibitions, in a restaurant where the girls were semi-nude. So there was no. Also, I guess what you're saying is because of the availability of social media and news in general, there's an explosion out there, and everybody is looking for something to make into a news item. You know, so unfortunately, you may be the fall guy.
Right. But in that respect, then do you think that that's obviously that's not fair. Naturally, I don't think it's fair on the artists as well. Neither is it. And
Yeah.
how do you change that mindset? I think as a photographer, as an industry person, I mean, being in the same industry, how do you think we can really change that thought process?
The only way we can do it is if we come together as an industry. I'll tell you what. Okay, when you have a huge exhibition, a joint exhibition at Jahangir, for example, when I had my exhibition, I was asked to leave, take up my one work. I chose to
Yes,
leave the whole
I remember
exhibit. I
that.
mean, if you
Yeah.
remember the whole hall, that whole section was empty. That
Yes, I
also
remember.
became new, So the thing is, I think it's the art world, first of all, the art galleries, which need to support us, you know, uh, because they are the ones who fear more than us. You see, we go to them as custodians of art, and if they don't stand with us, it gets difficult. So started using social media to show off my work. I've had art galleries call me after seeing my work on social media in whatever way I can. I reach out to them directly if I can. But yes, it's difficult. I mean, as a publishing house, I am really kicked and I'm really, amazed and excited that you put that image on the cover. Maybe it was
Right.
digital, so it worked. I don't know if you would have done that in print,
We would have
right?
definitely done that for sure.
But but would it be on the stands?
Absolutely. Once
No.
we
So
take
then,
the, I know what you're referring to. Definitely, I know.
so now imagine if 5 top magazines of the country get together and put nude covers and say it's okay because the government actually allows it. It's already allowed.
Exactly.
Okay, but it is. Sorry.
No, exactly. I was saying
Yeah.
exactly. It is allowed. Yeah. A lot of people
Yeah,
don't
it
know
is
that.
allowed
For
up
sure.
to a point, right? So when it is allowed, why aren't we pushing it out there? We, as a society, have too many levels, in our culture. So
Right.
it's not easy to make everybody happy. You'll never be able to make everybody happy. But I say if 10 of you get together, if 10 of us get together and we stand together, it just needs that one little push where we go together to a big art gallery and say, dude, you got to do this. We're there. So
Right.
it's that push. And also, what will happen is now, I think a lot of people want to explore. The more work that comes out, there'll be more acceptability. The more
Right.
acceptability there is, it's easier for society to accept it. So I think so. With me, what happened was I stood my ground. and it became a non-story later on. It got thrown out and everything, and I was fine. Nothing happened to me. So I don't think we should be fearful. We should find the right partners who will help you, stand with you when you want to do this. Like when I give my, lectures in colleges and all, if someone asks me a question, so if I do this and I get into trouble, what do? I say, call me, I'll help you.
Right.
Because I'm there, because I believe in it so much that if someone's genuinely an artist, I'm ready to fight, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of us ready to fight. So I think we just need to start, getting out there and not be scared of any and everybody.
Right, right. So, in fact, that I'm actually going to park the whole perception about how it's viewed internationally and how it's
Yeah.
here. The reason is because there's some interesting questions which our viewers are asking, and
So I can see that.
one of them is, of course, Canon guy Sancho, and he's asking that, when you start shooting things, then you are going to be getting a lot of negative work. So, how do you kind of tackle those things?
What do you, when you mean by
So when
negative
you,
word?
so for example, not negative work, negative comments. So for example, when you would
Yes.
upload your nudes and you shoot them, I'm sure that you get a lot of people who would be talking rubbish
Yeah.
and garbage. So how do you tackle them as a photographer?
They're not paying me to reply to them or get stressed about it, so I don't bother about them. I
Right.
either report them, block them, or I've actually taken 11 kids to the police station, so I will do that.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So,
First of all,
so
don't get stressed about it. I'll tell you what. First of all,
right.
don't stress about it, because these are people who are sitting across somewhere else with a gadget in their hand, and they think they can reply, comment to everyone. And when it happened to me in the start, I used to get upset, very frankly. Slowly, I realized that they're not paying me. They are not ever going to be my clients. Okay, they can make how much ever noise they want sitting in their house and be happy that they tried to put me down. But I'm not going to stop my work and my art. So, I mean, if I still want them around as a number of followers, I leave them there. If I don't want them around, I just report them and, end of the topic. That's the best thing to do. If you get into conversations with people online, especially, it's no point. If you're meeting people physically, you can have a conversation. You can try and make them understand. That's everybody has the right to have an opinion, but a negative comment has no place on your feed and in your life. Period. My funda is very simple. I
Right.
do not get stressed unless I'm getting paid for it.
Understand. So since you're talking about that, then even in commercials, in fact, photography Chris was also asking this, and I'm just going to enhance that question a little bit. That how is it that you can say, for example, two scenarios. Scenario one is, of course, looking in the current state about where we are, and probably it's still more challenging. Then how do you commercialize as a fine art nude photographer? One, and number two is that even say 5 years or 6 years down the line, when possibly the perception of people in India still changes, or the people viewing or maybe art galleries supporting
Yeah.
us still changes, then how would you commercialize it at that point of time as well? So, the realistic scenario of today and the futuristic scenario where actually there's higher acceptability.
Well, it's always going to be difficult, first of all, because photography in our country is not taken as an art form, compared to painting, sculpture.
Right.
But having said that, my personal work is in the collection of some really nice people, some, industrialists, some art galleries, some artists. So there is an appreciation. I think what happens is that you need to be one sure about the type of work that you're doing. Okay, you need to be sure that it's of a caliber which someone would really want to put it out there. You need to be sure that you're reaching out to the right people. When I mean reaching out, means it's like a business. You need to start making lists of people you think who will pick up your work, who will like your work.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
in India, there are 100 art galleries. I went to Trivandrum, I think, or Kochi. I don't know. Trivandrum, yes, Tiruvananthapuram. Many years back, 4 years back, and I was excited to see what the art scene is over there. So I picked up the newspaper and I started going. And there was a photography exhibition by a gentleman somewhere in their town hall or something like that. Very beautiful place where they have these performances and all. It's like our NCPA. I went over there and I saw his work, brilliant work. So I mean, if I can find someone going there on a holiday for 4 days through a newspaper, just to see what's happening, which is the art gallery over there, I'm sure you can pick up a newspaper. You can go online, you can go on the internet and find a list of maybe 20 art galleries, see their work, and see, like, if these are the type of people you want to reach out to.
Vikram, sorry. Vic,
Yeah, yeah,
Vikram, sorry to interrupt you. You're breaking up. Okay, you're back now. You're back now. Sorry, please
yeah, yeah,
continue.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm saying, so you need to start identifying the people you want to reach out to sell, especially art galleries. That's the first place to go to. So if you go to the right art galleries and start showing your work, you'll get feedback. You should meet artists. Like, try and meet as many artists as you can. Go to the exhibition, see what they're doing. Not, when I mean artists, it's not only photographers. It's artists, like proper painters, because they are the ones who are already there doing good work. Find a mentor, your way comes out here. I don't know, Bhavya. You start connecting the dots, and it's like a business where you need to make connects. You need to reach out to the right business houses, which are art galleries. You need to show them your work. It takes time. It's not easy. It takes time.
Understand. Understand. But do you think that even that crowd is going to be slightly limited? The reason is because, as we mentioned, and that's where I'm coming from in terms of perception. You've obviously won international awards, especially for your fine art nudes. So can you just give us an idea about how the difference is in terms of perception of purely fine art nudes in comparison to what we see abroad and what we see here? How mature that market is.
It'll be a huge difference, yeah. Because see, for example, if you're walking on a New York street, you may have seen photographers have, like, we call it a bhakra, but they have a stall over there selling books, their works of, nudes on the streets of New York. There is a very famous photographer. You should see his work, Gary Beckenheimer, I think. He shoots girls nudes on the streets of New York and other cities. Okay. And they're in the middle of the crowd posing. So the level of acceptability, even to put a naked girl in the middle of the road, you can't even imagine that in India, can you?
Right.
So we'll never touch that for the next 50 years, maybe. So we shouldn't even talk about that. If we are to be over here in Bombay, we are talking about India for that matter, it's a slow process and you have to find those few people. But if you believe that your work is great and you can get out of here, I'd say just get out of it. Simple. Because the appreciation level is high. See, I moved over there in the 90s for a little while to, work. And it changed the way my perception about my own work was, which is where, I maybe started experimenting on my news, on my techniques and stuff like that. So I think that openness is something we'll not see for a while. But yes, a clientele will increase. It's already increasing. It's not like it's not there. I've sold my
Right.
initial works, which I shot in 98, to some, random MD of a company who saw my works during an ad film shoot, and his person called me up. And I had an industrialist who called me for a, art camp, and I shot, and they've got my work. So you will find the right people. The more you move around, the more you show your work. I mean, but if you're comparing to an international standard, not possible. Not yet. Not 5 years.
Understand. Understand. If not five, I think, as you put it, like not even for the under 50 years, I think it's a
Yeah,
slow
no, no.
process
Yeah.
because of our cultural background. Niklesh is also actually asking an interesting question, I mean, and this kind of circles to a number of things. One is like, but I would like to ask only in this genre per se, where do you get that inspiration from in terms of a lot of the series that you do? Like, for example, we of course feature the bronze series in the
Yeah.
recent edition of Asian Photography, guys. So please do check that out as well. It's turned out beautiful, and the work is phenomenal. So
Thank you.
where does that inspiration come from? Conceptual understanding and vision, so as to say.
Bhavya, there's no explanation for that. I've been asked that many times.
Understood.
Uh, I think it just comes from life experiences, or, like I said, conversations in my mind, because I am almost 24/7 ideating. I've got books and diaries and papers full, scribbled with ideas which just keep popping into my head, and I start shooting series. A lot of series I've taken sometimes 10 years to do, because I start something, then I stop it, then I want to find the right place, right people to work with, and it keeps going on. Um, But taking it another way is maybe for me it's a societal question. Like, when I mean societal, means it's something to do with society, something to do with perceptions, which are always talking to me. I'm always thinking about how can I improve on something, or how can I, like for example, we have Swachh Bharat going on, right?
Right.
I want to do something with that and on a series like that. So for me, it's like I pick up words, thoughts, topics, conversations, and suddenly it becomes, a whole series in my head. And then I start, writing one line, two line, 10 lines, could be a whole page. Like someone's asking me my process. So my process is to first write down my thoughts, and then I start breaking it down into what I want. And sometimes my process is just that one word. Like when you talk about bronze, it just, women are the most beautiful of God's creations after our planet, the universe, and everything you want to call it. And, one of the oldest sculptures in the world is an Indian woman, from the Harappan civilization. And she's been captured in the nudes. And we've been doing that for centuries, except for the last 1 century, okay, where we were busy getting rid of other people. And
Right.
somewhere our culture ran away, or disappeared. I mean, Gandhiji wore the thing because of that reason, to showcase that this is who we are. So for me, it just starts like that: one word, one line, anything, and then it becomes. If you pick up my phone, I actually keep what do you say, pinning notes on my home screen, and I keep scrolling and adding things to that. So my
Right.
home screen has these little notes, like which I keep scribbling, and then I pin it, I open it, I scribble. So it's got all these ideas like that.
Right. Right. So, how do you? One of the viewers, Jazz, actually is asking a very interesting question. How do you? Is there a process or a way to learn fine art nude photography? I mean,
I could teach you.
I'm going to come to that. I know that you started mentoring sessions recently, and I am actually going to focus on that as well. But this is a very interesting one.
So,
Actually, because while you were speaking, I was just scrolling through questions. Actually, when I read this, I also immediately started thinking, how do you do that?
mm, well, can you go back to your question? How do you learn, right?
How do you learn nude fine art photography?
I would say experiment as always. Start slow, experiment as much as you can till you start understanding who you are and what you want from your images. And then you'll realize, like, okay, my interest is in this type of work, or this type of a conversation, this type of a story or a theme. Because I think it starts with that. When I started out, it was more about shapes, creating shapes, like, with the
Right,
human form, and capturing silhouettes more than anything else. It wasn't about capturing the nude as such. It was about capturing the silhouettes. And slowly, I advanced my thought process into this whole feel of, if I show you a series of work, what is the conversation you're going to have with me? Oh, like for example, when you saw bronze, you asked me, what is the story behind it? Why did you do it? Right? My job is done.
right.
That's my whole idea behind any of my series. The conversation, yeah. That's
Okay,
my
okay,
story.
okay,
Mm.
okay. Perfect. All right. So, moving on from a perspective of the aspect where, of course, Jazz also asked about how do you learn things, I would like to kind of move on a little bit to the practical aspects of kind of shooting and things like that as well. I know that you mentioned earlier that it's a lot, you've approached people while in the elevators and things like that, and you've been friends and stuff like that as well. But is it kind of a difficult genre to explore because there might not be too many people who might be willing to explore this sort of a subject?
No, okay. So two parts. First part, a lot of people you approach will be willing to explore with you,
Oh, wow.
because most people, boys, girls, are excited to, I wouldn't say excited is not the right word, would be willing to explore their bodies because it is, in a way, art that they are going to be creating with their own bodies, which they have not thought about, right? But 99.99% of these people will say, we don't want to show you our face.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first part. So the second part of your question is, yes, it's very difficult. It's very easy to get people without the face. It's very difficult to get people with the face. And I am at a place where I refuse to work with someone who's not comfortable. So I'd rather work with 1%, 2% all my life. As long as I don't have to think, if I'm shooting like this, later I can't use it, because it's happened to me. Like, I
Right.
created this beautiful series 10 years back. It's sitting in my box because the model said, please don't show these pictures to anyone. I mean, so why did I shoot the pictures? You see, a
Right.
lot of photographers, I'm sure, have this problem where they do want to experiment, but they don't get the right person who's willing to be a part of the process, be a part of the final images, and be, exhibit it as a final piece of work with or without their complete, body awareness, face, whatever it may be. So yes, it is very difficult to do it.
Right.
Get
So
people
in
at least, but not, yeah.
Right. So in that case, now, for example, if someone's halfway, if they're 50-50, that they're not sure or they're unsure about this thing, then how do you convince them about what your vision is? How does that work?
Like I said, you need to be able to read people when you start meeting them for something like this. You need to be able to have a very frank conversation, putting on the table what you want to shoot, what they're willing to let come out. Yes, there may be
Right.
times when once you've done this, they may call up and say, yeah, don't use it. That's when you'll feel really pissed off. So the other way to go about it is have a conversation, put down in writing what you're going to shoot, get a paper signed, like a model release or something like that.
Right, right, right. So, in fact, that's also another thing which is very important,
Yeah.
because I'm sure that a lot of people, for example, whether you're approaching, so even whether you're approaching friends as well, or even if they are like models or XYZ, is it always
Mhm.
good to have something down on paper? Is that more
Yes,
advisable,
yes,
or
absolutely,
okay?
absolutely good. So, but many years back, I did this shoot and I got one of the best pictures of the world award in Paris. I was given the first prize. And after a few years, the model calls up and says, please don't use these images. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you signed a model release. You should have thought of it then. It's my work, also my hard work, my time, my team. We end up spending some time and money doing these things.
Right,
So, of course, so this is something I've done since 1996, even before I turned professional.
right.
So I think it's very important to have that frank conversation, and then after that, get the paperwork signed. I'm losing you, Bhavya. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can, but you're breaking up. You're breaking up. So it's kind of getting cut. Okay, you're back now. You're back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So, and in case if you don't get anything down on paper and things like that, what are the sort of things that you're exposing yourself onto? For example, I mean, as you said that so even if you use the image naturally and you've shot the image, it obviously is going to be your property because that's your work as a photographer. But does the subject and the model still have a say on not being able to use it?
Uh, Technically, no. Legally, they don't have the right because they were part of the image and they did it of their own, knowledge. But since you don't have on paper, it becomes an ugly scene where they could end up mentally stressing you out rather
Right.
than legally stressing you out,
Right.
or spoiling your name in public, which you definitely don't want.
I understand.
And this is from experience.
I understand. So, in fact, that's very interesting that you speak about. The reason is because is okay. I'm getting a few comments that guys, our video is not clear. Can our viewers just kind of tell us that?
Mine is
Okay.
Mine is clear. They're saying yours is not clear. You're back. You're
Okay.
back now.
I'm back. Okay,
Yeah.
guys. Sorry. Okay. All right. The questions are mounting up, guys. I'll try and address as many questions as possible. But okay.
Yeah.
Coming to this topic that we're talking about, the reason I asked this question is because, a few years back I was talking to a very famous international photographer who basically shoots a lot of these very big calendars. We're talking about the top calendars, which actually some of these sports calendars which we shoot. And one of the things that I asked him was that there's so much of razzmatazz, there's so much of glamour. A lot of the viewers see this and they go like, "Oh wow, the photographer's kind of always roaming around beautiful women, and they are kind of in bikinis and X, Y, Z, and all of these things." And the first thing that he said, he's like, whatever you do, get everything back on paper. You have to have something signed because of the same
Yeah.
reason why you said that there wherein he gave in instances where he's actually had to come back and people have kind of challenged him legally later on and things
Yeah.
like that became super ugly. So how is that here as well? In that respect, is it like does it seem as hunky dory and all beautiful and glory sort of a situation where you're kind of around people who are like almost semi-nude or nude and things like that, but it's actually serious work, right? At the end of the
It
day.
is. So, see, first of all, it's stressful to shoot something like this because you're trying to get something in your camera which looks good as a final result. You don't want to be disrespectful to your model in front of you. You may have lighting concerns where your model will be waiting for your lighting to, be set up and for you to get your frame sorted and everything. Um, and the final result, if you don't have paperwork and the model ends up saying you can't use it, you're going to get into trouble. Bhavya, I think you don't have network.
Right. Or is it? Uh,
Yeah, your network's totally gone.
am I audible now? Am I here?
Your audio's coming now a little bit.
Okay. Vikram, can I just, I'm going to lose all the questions, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to switch over to the data. So I'll just try and do this. In case it gets dropped out, I'm actually just going to bring you back, guys. So please just hold on. Apologies on the signal issues. And I know that a
Yeah.
lot of you have asked some brilliant questions, but please do stick on and please do re-ask those questions. Is it okay now? Is this better? Am I okay?
Little better. It's
Okay.
coming back, but it's not so good.
Okay. I'll just bring you back.
You're good now.
I'm good now? Is it, guys, am I good now? Okay, perfect.
I mean, like you're 50% as good as me.
Okay,
Yeah,
you're
okay, much
absolutely,
better.
you're crystal clear. You're crystal clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, guys, just one more, couple of lines more. If you can just tell us that if
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. So,
audible
so
and
the
if
thing
everything's
is
clear.
that my suggestion is get something on paper before
Right.
or after, whatever it is. Otherwise, you may end up. See, I'll tell you what if your model gets married, into a conservative family, and 5 years later, just when you're about to hold an exhibition, she calls up and says, "You can't put my pictures up. My marriage will go for a toss."
Wow.
So it's a dilemma, right? You're going to either spoil her or his marriage, right? Or you're going to think about your work. Now, if you're going to think about your work, she has every right to sue you and you have every right to fight with her, but you don't want that stress.
Absolutely.
I've actually had a model post for me and then come back to me later saying, please get rid of these pictures. So I was chasing every website on the internet for 5 years getting rid of them.
Wow.
And that was out of my respect for the model. Not like I had to do it, but you have to respect the people you work with. Like I said, you have to give them the courtesy because you can always create more. It may hurt you, but there may be a time like this series, which is really special to me 10 years back, I still can't show it. So
Right.
paperwork, guys, get it done. No matter who, friend or anyone, doesn't matter.
Understand. And is it more advisable to shoot a lot of these things under controlled environments like studios and sets and stuff like that instead of outdoors? Because Abby is actually asking this very interesting question that how is it that you actually tackle some of these outdoor shooting challenges like locals and authorities and extreme and all of these
I
things?
So I have shot outdoors, two types of outdoors. One was a friend's place where he had like a private jungle, if you want to call it. So
Right.
no stress with that. The other one was in Hampi. Okay, so it's better to get someone who knows the area, a guide, explain to them what you're doing, be truthful with them. If you know the person very well, don't have to be 100% truthful. You never know, he may be the one shooting pictures later,
Understood.
and it's so be upfront, tell them what you're shooting. Take a small crew as bodyguards, whether boys or girls. I
Right.
generally end up taking like a couple of girls and a couple of boys with me to handle all types of public walking in, and be discreet because it's not easy in India. I know that. So you have to be very careful when you're shooting outdoors. But remember, this is India. We are an overpopulated country. So
Right.
even if you go to a location 10 times and it's 100% empty before you take your model, my guarantee, the middle the model walks out there without clothes, you'll have 10 people standing from out of nowhere. So you have to be very careful. Take helpers or people who can be your bodyguards in times of problems, especially outdoors, because and stand your ground. And stand your ground. Don't let anybody bully you. Don't get scared because they will jump on you, because it's happened to me a few times that we don't let anybody bully us because they are not the authorities. If the authorities do walk in, then that's a different topic altogether on how to tackle them. But if
Right.
it's not the authorities and if it's the public, you're creating art in a public place. I don't think there's any issues in that. Okay. Yes, if you get taken by the authorities, then there'll be a big issue. So you have to, weigh your pros and cons. I have shot outdoors, not the most pleasing of feelings, but I have shot outdoors in places where I'm 100% sure I can have 360 vision of at least a kilometer away,
Right.
so on a high point. So, I mean, always go on a higher point so I can see anybody walking up, coming anywhere. So at least I know I'm not pounced on from somewhere. So it's not easy,
Understand.
guys.
Understand. Okay, before I ask my next question, now the video and the audio is absolutely fine, right? No
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
disconnecting that.
perfect.
Perfect, great. Okay,
Yeah.
so how Kasturi is also asking this, and this is a question that I want to ask as well. That it's a little. How do you make your model feel comfortable on in situations like this, or even pre or during shoots? Because with so maybe like 5 or 6 people around, it can kind of become a little awkward, or probably
Yeah,
some anxiety
yeah,
or something.
it
How do you do
can.
that?
Like I said, first the conversation when you start up with about what you're going to do, ask them, do they want people around? Are they comfortable with the team around? So a lot of times what happens is I ask the models, are you okay with the team? If they're not okay with the team, then I ask them, can I have them around when the lighting is done or the setup is done? And then I can ask them to move out so that I can shoot you. So you need to, like I said, have a rapport with your model of the day, and you need
Understand.
to be able to have a conversation with them in terms of what is their comfort level, and you have to work around their comfort level because they are the ones performing in front of the camera. At the
Right.
end of the day, they are the ones. I mean, as a photographer, guys, trust me, none of us can stand naked and shoot. It's impossible, right? So when someone does that in front of your camera, it's like a salute to them, that what they're doing is something none of us can end up doing that easily. So you need to actually give them tons of respect, tons of support to guide them to give you your pictures, and keep talking to them. Ask what they like during a shoot. Do they want to be guided? Do they want to do shut up? Do they want the lighting done and then they'll walk in? Or are they comfortable? Like, some of the people I work with, especially on a more, even Indians on an international caliber, they are very okay with 5 people in the room, shooting, doing the lighting while they're waiting comfortably in one corner. So you see, you need to have a conversation beforehand with the model, and if you work with them once or twice, then obviously your rapport, then you understand, okay, this is what the model, boy or girl, likes. I mean, you won't believe it. I've actually shot a male model who didn't want anybody in the room, and he didn't want the pictures coming out later. So it goes, it's boys also.
Sorry,
You're back.
I can hear you. I can hear
Yeah.
you. Uh, 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 Vikram, what I'm going to do is actually I'm just going to end this because we are just going to reach about the 1 hour mark as well, and it's only going to allow us to do the 1 hour. So I'm actually going to just end this session, and I'm just going to bring you back in like exactly 2 minutes so that we can kind of just restart. So, guys, please do stick around so that, and please stay tuned. We're going to address like there are a lot of really interesting questions that a lot of you are asking. So, I'm actually going to get to a lot of these things because we would love to answer as many of them as possible. Okay, Vikram, I'll bring you back in exactly two
Yeah.
minutes.
Yes, no problem. We'll be back, guys.
Hey Vikram, what's up?
Bye.
Right. Sorry guys for the interruption, and I might have like kind of lost a lot of your questions because this is the again we're starting a new session, so please do kind of type in as many questions as possible so that we can address to a lot of them. Sorry Vikram, we were having the conversation about how do you make the models feel comfortable, and you said that
Comfortable,
it's
yes.
always like, so please, if you would just kind of
Yeah,
continue from
no,
there.
no. I mean, like, I think we ended that, but anyway, I'll say that again. You need to have a frank chat with the model on what she wants or he wants. I mean, what he's comfortable with, how they want to work, do they want people around, are they comfortable with the crew around or not? And guide them during the shoot. So it has to be something which works both ways. Start with the frank conversation of the process of how you will be shooting and how everybody will be comfortable.
Right. So there was a very interesting question that one of the viewers had asked, which was basically Sunny, if I'm not mistaken, and he mentioned that what are the things which are kind of important to get a good fine art nude shot? Is it aesthetic, sensuality, or is it expressions? And so what according to you would be those things?
Aesthetics.
Okay.
Aesthetics first. Aesthetics first. Sensuality comes later. It depends on your concept, your theme. Again, a lot of people think nudes mean just showcasing the nude body. It's not that, guys. It's got to be a theme. It's not one picture. You have to think of it like 10 pictures, 12 pictures, 15 pictures together, which makes a series so that, there is a thought process involved when you're doing that. And for me, the elegance or the aesthetics of the picture matter, something which people can look at unabashed without feeling, queasy, and they should not be shy of seeing your nudes.
Right. One of our viewers is asking that the point that you were talking about earlier about having something on paper. So is that something which is just general? Does an email or even something on your letterhead do, or does
Yes,
that really have to be? It does. It's as
even an
good
email
as.
works. Even an email works nowadays. Legally, it's allowed on your letterhead. Obviously, better than an email. On a green paper, even better. But I don't think you need to go to that level. Even an email or even a WhatsApp chat nowadays is allowed in the courts. So it's
Okay.
fine. I mean, if you can get it on paper, nothing like it. But sometimes I realize it's difficult. So I even take an email, model release. It's fine.
Understand. Is there a lot of post-processing that's actually done to a lot of these fine art nude images, because you always hear about a lot of these images, even of celebrities and XYZ, they've always been airbrushed and this and that. What are your thoughts on that? Does that really happen?
See, commercial photography, I won't get into, but when you talk
Absolutely.
about fine art, well, I don't see anything wrong in using Photoshop. You see, because or airbrushing, as you call it, because during the days of film, we had dodging, burning, masking. I don't know if you're aware also, Bhavya, that at that time there was retouching when I was shooting film, but the retouching was
Okay.
done on the negatives. So we used to have these experts sitting with this huge, almost like a microscopic magnifying glass and color dyes. And those dyes were used to retouch the negatives. So, I mean, are you telling me all the actors, actresses, and models in the 40s, 50s, 60s had no pimples? So it was done on the negative.
Okay. Okay.
So
I didn't know this.
So yeah, so I don't think anybody doing any form of fine art, creating anything conceptually should be told don't use any technique, whether it is airbrushing, physical masking, painting to create art. The only thing I would say is don't go overboard just because you think you have the accessibility of using it.
Right, right. Okay, so coming to this aspect, say we've obviously addressed how do you go about it, how do you approach people, how I still have a few questions about the shooting bit. How important is, I mean, of course, light is something which is photography
Yeah.
is writing with light. How important is light even more important when it comes to fine art and news, uh, in comparison with even general photography, so as to say?
Yeah, I would say that given the theme, you can make a very beautiful, pleasing image look classy by the wrong shadows. You see, being you know because of the wrong type of lighting that you may use, unless that's the effect you want, the exaggeration, then it's fine if you're sure about that. But having said that, my own personal work has always been very straightforward, clean lighting, because I always concentrate on the subject, uh, what the subject is doing in my frame, how the subject is physically or emoting in my frame. So for me that's always been king. So my lighting is always simple, even if it's there are times when I've actually shot. I remember I went to LA many years back and I had this small, one of those RX1 cameras, which just has a 35 fixed lens and one small, flash on top. I did two shoots completely over there using that flash as my main light. I ended up shooting like maybe 3,000 frames and I had a series of around 25 pictures. So I like to keep it simple most of the time. That's in terms of equipment. I like the person to see. For me, news is also, like I said, it's a collaborative process. So if the person in front of me can, act out, if you want to call it, an image by my guidance or from their own internal feelings, my work is done. I don't have to sit down and do 10,000 lights to make it look good. That just means I'm trying too hard for me. Okay, for me.
Right.
I mean, for me, I keep it very simple because I like to capture the person in front of the camera. I like to capture an emotion, a mood, a thought process, which I may have, put in the model's head as a germ, or the model herself or himself may want to, portray. Like I did this boy's pictures, brilliant pictures. He wanted to do nudes because he was a very well built, toned person, and he wanted to show his, physique, but in a dance form. You've used one of the images, I think.
Yes, I
So
know
you've
that.
not seen the whole series actually, maybe. So it later moves on to even a girl, but his pictures are better because uh, he is actually moving in the images, and to me it felt like he's enjoying himself in that space with that one light as a guiding light, and I got some really brilliant pictures of that.
Right, right. So then, from that perspective, I mean, just talking about fine art nude itself, what is that one thing that you cannot live without when it comes to shooting fine art nudes? Something that, say, for example, if you have a shoot day after tomorrow, and then you have to, there's one thing that you have to choose, and without that, you really can't do the shoot.
No, I'm sorry, can you go back again? I lost you in
Um,
the middle.
right. So, one thing that you actually cannot do without when you're doing a fine art shoot. And of course,
Uh,
please don't say model, camera, or lens because that's obvious. I'm saying beyond these three things.
um I would think some sort of personality from the model, that from the
Okay.
subject in front of me. There has to be an energy, that the subject in front of me needs to have, whether See, I feed off energy. I'm one of those guys, like, like if I'm having a conversation with you, I'm only going to have a conversation with you because I'm enjoying my conversation with you. Okay, because I'm having a good positive energy coming out of you. I cannot work with people who don't have that inside energy which says we want to do something in life. For me, it's always been like that. If you're the type of person who comes in front of me, I can feed off you and become better. That's the person I am. So if I have a subject in front of me who's willing to give off to my camera, see, I won't say give off to me because it's not personal. It's giving off to me for my camera. That's what I cannot do without. I have actually it's a great question you asked because I've never thought of it. But going back many years back, I did have a model who actually wanted to just do nudes, and I lost my head and I threw her out of the shoot
Right.
because I realized that what she was doing was not up to the mark aesthetically, one, and two, was not needed at that time, in the sense there was no concept, no theme. It was like, let's do this. For what? There was no energy coming out. It could be for whatever reasons that model wanted to do those type of pictures, didn't have a synergy with me, and I really didn't want to shoot. And I've thought about that for many years because that was I mean, one of the rare occasions where I actually asked someone to leave my studio.
Right.
So I mean, it's something that has come to my mind after so many years. Good question.
Great. Right. So one of our viewers, actually, Burman, is asking about how do you tackle those comments wherein people say that they are vulgar. So Burman, Vikram has already addressed this, and we've already addressed these questions.
Fine.
He's just
I,
basically
I
said,
can I can actually mention something else over there to cut you. Okay,
please.
it's a different type of question for me. I can put it like this. Okay, from a photography point of view, from an artist point of view, why don't you go through the comments, or the negative or the vulgar comments coming to you, and see if your work is really, you know uh, let's say, aesthetically strong enough to stand up for. Because a lot of time, a discerning public, the people who are seeing your work, can make out whether you've truthfully shot a subject or a series, or you've just shot it for titillation. So I think what we spoke about earlier was also there, that don't get taken down by negative comments. But if you take it as constructive criticism, maybe you can improve your game. So you can look at it from both sides. You have to be sure. Like I said, I am 99, no. I am 100% sure that when I am shooting nudes, my reason is only an exhibition in my head. My whole thing about life is I need to have an exhibition with any and every, even if it's one picture in my life. I don't care about anything else. My work needs to be put up there. So I know when I put something out there, if someone is getting offended, it's mostly, their ideologies or their way of thinking. Because when I was creating it, I had my heart and my art in it. But I will try and have a conversation and try and see where they're coming from. So you can see both sides of the coin. Yeah.
Right. Uh, you know, so moving on from that and kind of like sticking to that same genre, a lot of times when you actually do general photography, then of course there is a lot of plagiarism, there is a lot of misuse of pictures. And in this
Yeah.
case, especially if you're talking about fine art nudes, then that's something which is even more important. And it is something which can actually be misused. How do you tackle that? I mean, what do you do? Has that ever happened to you? And if that happens to
Yeah.
anyone, then how do they tackle it?
I go after them. I don't leave anybody who takes my work, plagiarizes my work, uses my work. Today, someone used my picture on Instagram. They screenshotted my image, cropped it, took away my copyright name, and they put it over there on their page. So I
Right.
know who it is. So I don't generally leave people who use my work that easily. Having said that, there are times when it's really not worth the effort, like I said, to stress about it, because you need to understand, is it violating your subject? Is it your model's rights? Is it violating your rights? Is it being used commercially without your knowledge? Or is it just someone who is unaware maybe of the legality? So you tackle it accordingly. A lot of times, if someone uses my work on Insta without my permission, I send them a nice message. Please ask me, and I don't want it up there. If I don't mind them having it, then I'll say, please tag, do not tag me. If it's online, then I will pursue them to get rid of it if it's without my knowledge. If it's being used commercially, then I go after them legally. So, but having said all that, you really need to understand, is it really worth breaking your head on uh, that piece of work which has been plagiarized by someone? Either, so it could be if someone's appropriated your work and retweaked it, not allowed. If someone's copied your work, you can't stop them. You can only call them out. And I have called people out on Insta and Facebook. Unfortunately, I realized a lot of people who do that, like, take your work and blatantly copy it, don't even understand that what they're doing is wrong, one, and second, it's not improving them as a photographer.
Right.
So I guess it's a personal way of it, but most of the time I will not, let it go that easy.
Understand. But in that case, like say for example, if it's you or if it's any upcoming budding photographer, and if they kind of let go a number of times, do you think that kind of like sets a pattern, or it gives an idea to the individual that okay, look, we can do this and we'll possibly get away with it? Do you think that might be the case, or that could happen?
That is the case, which happens a lot of times because, see, most photographers don't have the financial and emotional bandwidth, if you want to call it, to pursue it up after a point. Like I said, luckily with social media, you have all the channels having a report section, a copyright claim section. I'll give you an example. So I have shot the cover of The Immortals of Melua, okay, the novel by Amish, dear friend. So suddenly a South Indian movie comes up where on YouTube they have my image as their cover photo, and it's already got like around 10 million views. So someone's making money, right? Using our image without our permission, chopping off the name of the OTC magazine. So I just sent a report to YouTube and Google, and his channel was blocked. So basically, his movie promotion gets stopped.
Right.
The gentleman found me, mailed me that you should have told me earlier. I would have gotten rid of it. But there was no way to reach out to him. Instead, he should have reached out to me. I
Absolutely.
made the mistake of being a nice person and let it go. Whereas legally, I was told I could have made a few lakhs, by letting his channel be like that, and his movie release is going on, I could have made money. But ethically, I'm not the type of guy who, is vindictive. He did it. I can spend my next 10 years trying to sue him and take out a few lakhs, which I have at times done, where genuinely it's been, my money is being stopped for whatever reasons. But something like this, it's not worth the effort after a point. If it was a commercial company, let's assume, who's using my image to promote a car or a jeep, yes, I would go after them. So it was a learning experience because I was told later by the lawyers, Vikram, you should have pursued it. It was a open and shut case. They would have to pay you because their whole promotions are blocked, and they would do
Right.
anything to get their 10 million views coming back to them. Because imagine starting YouTube again, a new channel, putting the movie up again, and trying to get those views. So they would have paid you. But I didn't realize it at that point. Now I realize it. So like I said, I don't think you should let it go. Either report it or go after the money. So see how much you can push yourself right now.
So it kind of boils down to the effort and the outcome that you have to put. If the outcome
Yeah.
is going to be major, then yes, it's definitely something that you
Yes.
should
Yes.
pursue, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, you should
No,
always report. Sorry. Yeah.
no, please go ahead.
No, I'm saying you should always report it. You should always give it. See, it's one mail, two mail, 1 day, 2 day. It's your work. Don't let it go that easily. But then you have to see what the effort is behind it. Yeah.
Understand. Okay, so in terms of fine art and I know that you gave an instance about one of the guys who actually wanted to get himself shot in a dance form. What's the most memorable fine art shoot that you've had, which really comes to your mind instantly? apart from the one that you already mentioned, and if you can share any interesting anecdotes or story behind that.
I think the most interesting for me has been actually, it's two of them. I'll mention one. It's this Fallen Angel series, which is very special to me because at that point I was going through, also my work through the years I realized goes up and down through colors or through black and whites or shades of lighting, depending on my emotional state. Like, if you see a whole series of dark lighting, you need to understand I'm going through a dark phase or a phase where I need to, if I'm going through overly colorful images, if you see, that means I'm out there trying to, bounce everywhere. So this was a series which I actually was going to shoot on a digital camera. I mean, you would remember when we used to get digital backs and we used to fit them on Mamias, not the phase
Right.
ones like
Right.
now. So when digital had started, I was out shooting for a big industrial house, and they had invited me with 20 other artists to create some work for them. Okay, so it was a big honor for me actually, something really big for me that you get invited with and with people who are selling for 5 crores actually. So I was like a nobody over there. I was just some young kid, if you want to call it. And when I reached the place, I was told you will get whatever you want. We will take care of the expenses. But being a commercial photographer for so long, you know, and shooting for yourself, fine art is one thing. But if someone tells you, okay, we're giving you this space, we're giving you the resources, come up with a concept, your mind goes blank. So it took me 4 days just to think of what to shoot, in which I also broke down, realizing that it's not that easy, uh, you know, uh, doing something that really has to come out of your heart, no matter what the resources. You have to feel it to put it on paper, put
Right.
it on print, put it in your camera. So, I mean, especially when it comes to fine art. So I did end up creating that series with a model with some wings, which by chance, I don't know why I carried them with me. So I didn't have a model when I went for this shoot.
Right.
I was going to a location, but I flew a model down finally. I had these wings with me, and as the series turned out, it's almost an extension of what I was feeling of being trapped in a photography space where I didn't know how to get out of the place, and by the time I, was midway through the series, I suddenly realized that shooting for myself is more important than shooting for money because I'd been shooting for money. You generally, after the whole initial hobby, excitement, experimenting, when you make photography a business, you need to run it like a business and you need to survive in that business. So a
Right.
lot of times, no matter how much you experiment with the client, it's not what you're doing for yourself. Because
I
you'll get a lot
understand.
of clients who say, Vikram, we want your style, we want your take, we want how you do it. But that's not always your style because you've got limitations. You're showing a jewelry piece. You're showing a model, you're showing that the actor is more important. Whatever, the
Right.
clothes may be important. It's not coming from within you. So at this series, The Fallen Angel, the first shot happened by chance where the model started smoking inside a closed room. Okay. And it was like the really early morning. So for her, that was the, wake up call. And as the shoot progressed, it was almost like I was coming out of that cabin and ready to fly out of there. And when I walked out of that series or that shoot after 10 days, the shoot lasted 2 days, 4 hours each day. And we were attacked by almost 70 monkeys, and I had to, actually stand there like a Hanuman, fighting them off vocally. Monkeys are scared of your voice if you can stand your ground.
Right.
Okay, and but when I came back from that series, I just realized that my mind needs to be open all the time for inputs coming in from 360 degrees from everywhere and not get lost in the whole commercial world of photography. I think that's my most important series for me.
Understand. Right. So, some of our viewers actually are very used to this thing that we do. Actually, it's called kind of cover shots, which is basically our version of the rapid fire, and some of them are already asking for it. So, guys, I'm actually going to come to that. Don't worry. But before that, I still have a couple of questions which I have for Vikram. So the first one is, I mean, yeah, we went through the process of course, shooting and then convincing the model XYZ. Now that you've actually shot that, you have the work in your hand and things like that. Then, for a new and a younger photographer, how do you actually take it out there? Of course, for you, it's really easy because you are a very well-known name, you're extremely famous. But someone who's kind of starting out, what do they do? What are your suggestions and tips for
Now,
them?
misconception. Every time you have a new piece of work you want to show around, you're a newcomer, even for me. So for
Okay.
a fresher, the only difference would be the confidence in, going up to a person to show their work. Not that I don't falter at that part even today. Because see, when you have a new series, you're excited about it. You want to show it to the right person. So you need to make cold calls. You need to try and meet as many people as you can, even for a fresher. You actually have to walk around with a bag full of your prints, to show. I've actually gone to an art gallery with, 5 feet by 7 foot, 10 prints, in a minivan, like a small tempo with five assistants, and go there and start opening them and showing them, okay, I want to have an exhibition with this work. What does it? Because I knew that series looks good only big. Because you would also know, Bhavya, when you make a print, like when you see bronze on your magazine cover, it looks beautiful. But if I was to give you a 6 foot print, what would you say?
Yeah, much better. Definitely. I mean, of course.
So the impact is different. So when you're going to the art gallery, you can't take out a laptop. You have to show them the physical work. So even I've actually taken a small tempo, go with my physical work, show it over there, approve it, and then get maybe, or I've gone to an art gallery recently and I've shown them another series, and he's seen it, he's loved it. He said, fine, you take it, I'll call you when I need it. Right. I mean, he's put up the small thumbnails on his gallery, but I still had to go there, show it to him. So everybody has to do that. Even for newcomers, you need to take your physical prints to show what you want to sell. You can't send files on email and expect. Yeah, there will be people who will say, email it to us. If we like it, we'll, think about it, because, they want to have a conversation with you after they see the work. So well, you'll have to give it a shot. I mean, I've had people out of Bombay say, email it to us, and I try telling them, you'll never understand what it looks like when the scale is big. So, but that's a limit we have. And with this
Understand.
new world we are living in, I think that'll be a limit for a while, maybe.
Understand. Okay. Basil is actually asking that as a creative person, do you have a lot of writer's block? I mean, writers
Yeah,
have blocks, and as a photographer,
yeah.
as a creative person, do you ever run into a block? How do you tackle that?
Yes, I do. I do. Like I said, when I was shooting this Fallen Angel, I'd been a commercial photographer almost 10 years without a break, practically, actually creating something for myself. So I had this huge block, and I cried in my room. I actually cried with tears in my room. Say, I'm not a good photographer anymore. I can't shoot for myself anymore. Like, I need a brief. It took me 4 days of clearing up, and then one of the artists suggested to me, just take a break and do what you're good at. And I said, what am I good at? So the artist said, she's a really dear friend, Brinda Miller. She said, Vikram, you're very good at nudes. And I said, yeah, but you're asking me to create a series like which I had never created a series. So be very frank, before that, I never created a huge series. I needed to create a huge series at this camp. I was supposed to create 15 images or 20 images, and all have to be good enough to go up in an exhibition, standing with artists who sell for 5 crores. So, the stress of being myself was so high that I had the biggest block in my life. So I've had this block many times in my life, many, many times. And less now, maybe, because I think I keep my mind a lot more open and less stressed out in that sense. I look at every day being a day which you need to go through with one small task, so it's easier to go on to the next day. But when I do get a block, depending on what I'm doing at that time, I will actually work 10 times harder than what I normally would. Or I would really take a break from everything and just veg out, not do anything, watch a lot of TV maybe, or go for a long drive. And then when I come back, I still work 10 times harder because that's the only way to
Understand.
do it.
But as an artist, is it difficult to kind of disconnect even when you're taking a break? Because a lot of times when I'm also taking a break, which is rarely, you still find yourself being glued in or tuned into something or the other.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest problem in my life is, Bhavya, that I'm seeing images everywhere. Like even when I'm talking to you, I'm imagining my phone on a stand, on this stand, and it looks like an image, and I'm thinking, oh, how can I crop it? How can I shoot it? So the mind is continuously working on images, you know. So this whole concept of taking a break is actually for me, when I say take a break, I take a mindless break where I'm doing actually nothing and just vegging and just watching maybe TV to the point where, I've got the only movie scenes in my head or something like that, and I've taken out everything yeah, from my head. But there have been times when I've just sat in my studio and, you know, kept working on something or the other till my creativity comes back again. I mean, there's no perfect way to handle this. I know what you're saying. There's never a break. It's always thinking. It's always ideating, if you want to call it.
Right. Right. Our good friend Nishant is actually saying that just having somebody else's salad and someone else's beer clears the block. Hi, Nishant, how are you? He just had to get that one in here. Right. Okay, guys, I'm actually just going to take one last question, and after that, I'm going to move on to the last section, which is basically the quick fire kind of section where we do interesting and fun questions. So, if there's any question which is actually going to come in, that's fine. So, while that comes in, I already have a question, but I'm going to kind of hold that off, and I'm going to go on to the quick fire thing. So the quick fire is basically your same sort of a rapid fire sort of a situation. We actually call it something like cover shots. Yeah, Vikram.
Mm.
So in this, I'll basically ask you. I'll just fire off questions, and you have to you have a couple of seconds to obviously respond to them. You know how the drill goes. So it'll be interesting, and then of course, yeah, be as prompt and as quick as possible. Okay. You ready? Shall we?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, super. What year did you start shooting in?
93 is when okay, I was a hobbyist around 87. I turned pro 96.
Right. What's the first camera?
Yashica FX3 Super 2000 DSLR film camera.
Your first commercial shoot and the memory of it.
My first commercial shoot was when it was around, I think, 88. I charged 700 rupees to shoot for a leather lifestyle brand out of Crawford Market. I was
Okay,
in college.
right. Your best personal achievement so far.
My best personal achievement so far. Um, I don't know. I don't think like that. I think I've not achieved anything yet. I think I'm still starting out. But my best personal achievement is when I reach out to people, and if I can guide them, help them, whatever. That's what I love a lot.
What's the best piece of advice that you've received from anyone?
Shut up and don't talk so much and don't be rude on shoots.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice you've received from someone who is not into the photography industry?
He said, for anything that gets you in trouble, just say no comments.
Okay. The most memorable series that you shot so far?
My most memorable series that I've shot so far. Mm, my I don't know if you remember, there was something called the infrared series that I did. It was called the Bawa Effect by Times of India in the 90s. I don't think you'd know that.
I don't. Right.
Uh,
But I'll look this up. I'm going to look this up for sure. Okay.
yeah.
Your favorite camera?
My favorite camera, my small Sony RX1.
Okay. All right. I have one more question, but I think I'm not going to. I'm not going to ask that because I'm not sure about that answer.
You can
But
ask it.
I'm
I don't have to reply.
But that would be fun, right? Okay, so I'm actually going to ask the question. There's one gentleman who's basically white tribal who's actually persistently asking this question, and they're asking that the two questions. One is that how does any male starrer begin with okay, how does a male starrer begin with a female nude artist?
A male
So
photographer, I guess.
right, a male photographer begin with a female artist.
Well, like I said earlier, you have to be sure about what you want to shoot, be truthful, have a conversation, explain to them what you're looking at. If they say no, okay, great, no issues. If they say yes, then get into the nitty-gritty of actually how the shoot will happen, what will be required of the model, what will you be doing, will you have a team around, like we spoke about this, all these
Right,
things.
right. Okay. Is there a way that you can actually track a lot of your images? So I just want to touch
Yes.
upon a couple of questions because I know that you've actually spent a lot of your time archiving your images and
Yeah.
so on. We've had a lot of these conversations over the years.
300
So,
TVs of data,
right.
all
So,
trackable.
right. So how do you do that? One of our viewers is actually asking
Uh,
us.
so you need to meta tag every image. You need to have keywords and tags on every image. That's the first way to track these images online, at least. Second, there are softwares out there which you can use. There's something called Pixie, Pixsy. They will even follow up and sue people for you. They don't do it in India, but you can track your images through their software. It's a paid site. There are a few other companies who do that. The other way to do it is register your images the minute you shoot them. When I mean register, you can register them in India or you register them in the US, which is better, because their copyright laws are stricter than our copyright laws. But we have very similar copyright. Actually, people are unaware of the Copyright Act. So the best thing to do is when you shoot something, the minute it's going out to someone, please put your copyright notice on it. Period. That's the best way to track your images because there's very few people who will pick up your image because they will see that C and your name under it. Like they'll see a C and a Vikram Bawa. Very few people will take it. Someone who actually does it means he needs to be sued because he's seen the copyright. Because I don't let my pictures go out. So there have been times I've actually tracked pictures and I've told people to take them out, including models who I've shot for, and maybe paid them and without permission if they've used it, I ask them please remove it or put my tag on it. So if I've actually asked people who've got like 24 million views, followers, okay, if you don't put my tag on it, please don't put my picture because it doesn't make sense to me. Getting the mileage, you're making the money over there. Everything, what am I getting? It's my work. I created it. I agree you were part of it. But both of us have to be given equal respect and due. So, best way to track it is find these softwares. There are 3 or 4 softwares. Even Google does it. What you can do is best thing is go to Google, upload your images over there on their thumbnail, and it just shows you where it's there. That's another
Right.
good way to do it. Yeah.
I understand. In terms of what's your advice? I mean, now everybody obviously is very much not really doing anything during the unfortunate times that we have in terms of the pandemic. What is your advice to people during these times? How is it that they can kind of improve upon their skills and whatever they're doing during the lockdown?
I would say I don't know how easy it is for people to shoot right now since it is not. I've been shooting, what I see at home, sceneries, landscapes, and stuff like that, creating images, graphic images, and stuff. Other than that, I think make a plan of where you want to be, what you want to do in the next few months, when work starts, doesn't start, who are the people. Use this time, if there are people who are doing fine art or they want to get into fine art, why don't you find out the art galleries? where you can go and visit and see what's happening, or where you can go and show your work. Make a plan on the type of images you want in your folio. If you already are practicing photographer, rework your folio. Like I'm looking at my website and I feel like throwing half the images out right now. Every time I have a webinar with someone and they start talking about pictures, and I'm like, "Ye series mein se this picture I want to throw out." So you need to revisit your life as a photographer and start. I can't say reinvent, because as a photographer, it's very difficult to reinvent. You can start, if you want to call it. You can revise your work. You can create something new, or plan. This is the time when you have the time to plan. Just plan. So I would say put your timelines. कि July में मैं ये करने वाला हूँ. खत्म. Like 1, 2,
Right.
3, 4. Because before that, I don't think much is going to happen. So but you have the time to plan. So that's what. Like we were talking about the mentorship plan. That's why I put it together, because a lot of people came to me during this time. So yeah, we can talk about that whenever you're ready. Yeah.
No, so I was just actually going to ask that. That was my next question. So, what is the objective behind mentoring and starting all of these things?
Okay, so the thing is that Bhavya, I've been giving lectures almost 20 years. I've been part of college, their panel, their guest lecturer from you name the university or the college, practically all of them, from Nasik se leke Delhi, from Hyderabad. I've actually traveled to these places, even so. I was even being empaneled by Ramoji Rao College and stuff like that to start photography for them. So, and a lot of kids send me messages, emails. Whenever I interact, the biggest thing I've realized is that even though a lot of kids go to college, a lot of colleges are there and universities are there. It's like like how we have a regular education system. You come here, you do this work, you do these projects, you get this marks, you're given a certificate, you're thrown out in the market. Not one college I've been to can actually sit down with a person, one-to-one and guide them. Because for them, it's like, okay, I need 20 kids, per class, so many kids, so much salary, so many fees coming out, I need to run my college. No disrespect. They are all doing it for the love of it, and also they need to survive. They may not be making billions. For me, it's different. The way I look at mentorship, in the sense that I have kids who want to come and spend a day with me, an hour with me. They say, sir, आपके साथ आधा घंटा बैठना है, आपके साथ 1 घंटा बैठना है. And I realized that, in 45 minutes or 1 hour, like I started the smallest one in 45 minutes, because I realized you actually can answer quite a few questions. You can't make him a photographer, but you can give him the confidence. You can give him the support. You can give him the positivity or a direction where he wants to go in life. You see, every photographer out there, even if you make 1,000 photographers stand in front of me, cannot be like each other. Even if I give them the same model, same clothes, same makeup, same lighting, they will still shoot something different and come back. So I cannot teach all of them in one class and expect them to do, great. Everybody has a different aptitude. So this whole mentorship program came up with, you're in college for 2 years, getting your diploma, then going out, then struggling another 5 years. It's not easy. You don't get out there and say, I'm a photographer. Yes, today with social media, maybe in a year, you may become famous because you're good, you have access to models, you have access to things, you have the money, you can get famous really fast. It's possible. And there are people who are doing that, hats off to them. But most people need guidance. I give you a simple point. How many photographers right now on this chat know, that if I have to shoot a fabric which is blue in color, in satin, and blue in color in velvet, will not come out the exact color that you're seeing with the same type of lighting. Now, if I put that velvet on you and I shoot you, but I light you to make it look the right color of blue, which I see with my naked eye, you're going to get overexposed. And if I do the same thing, so these are things which are not taught in college. These are things which come with practical experience out there, and these are things you can only explain to someone by sitting with him and saying, buddy, तेरे को ये project दे रहा हूँ, तू ये कर क्या? Because these projects are not given in college. Because I have taught and I've taken lectures where people have given styling, exercises, and for them styling means लड़की को कपड़ा पहनाना है, लड़के को कपड़ा पहनाना है. They don't have the thought process that this combination of clothes has to work with the background also. It has to work with the lighting. So my mentorship, the whole idea to do mentorship was to understand what your capability is, capacity is, and then take you forward.
Got your point.
Like build a program. It's not like a fixed class. I build it around the person I meet, around what they know, what they want to learn, and where they want to go. So that's what I teach them.
Great. That's really good to know. So, guys, I mean, like for a lot of you as well who are actually looking to get like first-hand knowledge about what you should be able to do. I mean, of course, I'm someone who can really vouch. The reason is because I've known Vikram for so many years. We worked together for so many years, and he's someone who's actually a knowledge powerhouse, and also more importantly, someone who really likes to share that knowledge. So, which is not something that you really meet or find often in people. So if you're looking for that sort of a mentor, then of course definitely Vikram is I think one of the best that's out there. So definitely, I mean, from that aspect as well, Vikram, I mean, I would like to wish you best of luck in
Thanks so
that
much.
new objective that you're trying to achieve, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who will really benefit from the knowledge that you've gained over the years. And on that note, I would again, once again, thank you for being part of this and also tackling such an interesting and a unique subject, which a lot of people don't really do out there. So really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Great, and thanks a lot. And we'll see you soon and shortly.
Yeah.
And for all the viewers as well, thank you so much for plugging in. And we hope we've been able to address all the questions that you've had. And yes, there are many that we could not, but we've been speaking for almost 2 hours now. So I'm sure that we would have addressed those questions somewhere in along
Yeah.
those 2 hours. So please do view that, and it'll be
Yeah.
great. Great.
Yeah, it's great having being here. Thanks, Bhavya, and thanks everybody for coming online and asking these questions. Because every time you ask a question, even I start thinking about something and I realize something, which is great for me also. So all the best to you guys. Keep rocking, keep experimenting.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot,
Bye,
Vikram.
Bhavya.
All right.
Take
See
care.
you. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, thank you so much, guys, for of course tuning in and plugging in. We'll be back again next week with another guest, another set of interesting conversations, and a lot more. We've been doing this series of expert talk over the past number of weeks, so there are a lot of the other photographers also that we've actually spoken to. You will find a lot of those chats. You'll find a lot of those videos on our Instagram as well, and you can also get those podcasts. We'll be converting this also into a podcast, and we will be uploading it in a couple of days. So thank you so much for tuning in and asking all of those questions. Thanks to Team AP as well, and of course Vikram, dear friend, old friend, been know him since many years. So thank you so much, and until next time, happy viewing and stay safe. Bye.